Oh, right, part two. Talking about the peripheral nervous system, we just talked about the central. You think central, center of the body, brain and spinal cord. From there, peripheral means away from center. So if you think of anything spanning out, nerves going from your arms all the way down to your fingers, down to your toes, all that would be peripheral of the center of your body. Again, it's made up of nerves that fan out from the central nervous system. These nerves connect to everything, muscles, skins, organs, glands. Remember that the nerves, when we talked about our circulatory system, triggered our heart to pump. So obviously this is going to help control organs and tell them what to do. The peripheral nervous system carries messages between the central nervous system and the rest of the body. If you remember, we talked about touching the hot table. Peripherals send message up to the brain. Brain says, table's really hot. Sends message down back to my hand that says, take it off. You're gonna burn your hand. Lots of communication. Remember, it happens very, very quickly if you think about how quick reflexes are, or how fast you would move your hand if you touch something hot. It would be almost instant. Again, this is just a nice picture. We have our central nervous system, boom, everything spanning down, our nerves, and our peripheral nervous system. Your peripheral nervous system has two parts to it. You have something called a somatic system and an autonomic system. Again, we talked about autonomic looking a lot like the word automatic. So your somatic system is the part of your nervous system that deals with actions you control. So if you remember way back to talking about our muscular system, we had involuntary muscles and voluntary muscles. Out of our three kinds of muscles, which one can we control? Is it cardiac, smooth, or skeletal? You can see my example has arm muscles, bicep, tricep, deltoid, whatever. So skeletal muscles, our somatic system, we control our skeletal muscles. Then you have our autonomic system. Again, looks a lot like automatic, meaning that these are actions you don't control. So what is something that happens in your body that you have no control over? Can you think of an example? Again, we talked about our skeletal muscles being something we control. So now we have smooth and cardiac that we don't control. So that would be our heart and our digestive system, things like that. So those would be things that would automatically do through our nervous system. Again, the nervous system tells the heart when to pump. We don't have to sit here and remind our heart to pump blood. That would be a lot to think about. Last thing, some problems of the nervous system. This one's probably the biggest thing that can happen if you yourself don't take precautions. You know, it's not something you're born with. It's something that happens to you either by accident or because someone did something. But traumatic brain injury is a condition caused by the brain being jarred and striking against the inside of the skull. If you remember, we kind of talked about babies' brains being super fragile in their heads, and if people shake them, you have something called shaking baby syndrome, which is traumatic brain injury, and it leads to that child either dying or having a lot of mental motor, problems when they grow up, depending what part of the brain has the most damage. But this is the number one cause of death and disability in children and young adults. So either because you had an accident and hit your head, or you were shaken as a baby, or you again had a little accident playing a sport or riding your bike. Saw something on Facebook and a little boy was just playing basketball, something you would never think to wear a helmet for, and you don't need to wear a helmet when you play basketball, but he fell, hit the back of his head on concrete, and he died because he hit his head hard enough just in the right spot. And it can happen to anyone. Happens to a lot of people riding snowmobiles. I know some of you own those. And four-wheelers. And I've heard people were sitting on the front, they were backwards, they're goofing off, someone slammed on the brakes, they flew off, hit their head on a tree, and died. Someone I went to high school with, that happened when he was snowmobiling, fell off, hit his head, traumatic brain injury, died instantly. So that's why we wear helmets and we use these things with caution. If you were to not just, hit your head, but also your spinal cord, those injuries can cause paralysis and nerve damage. So say you do fall and hurt your head and your spine, you might just end up paralyzed, is what paralysis is. Or having nerve inflammation basically means you could have a lot of nerve pain in your body that may or may not go away, or you could have nerve damage and have loss of feeling in that area of your body. But this traumatic brain injury, again, some of you have had concussions playing sports. That's traumatic brain injury. That is, dangerous. And you could grow up having some disability because you injured the part of your brain that deals with coordination or speech, so just be careful and wear the corrective sports gear and, know when too many concussions is too many concussions. Some other things that can happen, at the top, meningitis is something you might have heard of. It's a potentially life-threatening infection of those meninges that are those membranes in your spine, and they're covering it. So those membranes we talked about can get infected, and if you don't, just like any other infection, if you don't catch it and don't cure it, it can be life-threatening and deadly. So that's where meningitis comes into play. A brain tumor is an abnormal growth of tissue that kills normal neurons around it. So, if any of you Grey's Anatomy fans out there, there's lots of brain tumors in Grey's Anatomy, and they usually go in and they can remove it. But if they can't, then you're just looking at, how much time you have left or what sort of function you have remaining with that tumor. So again, some people can go blind if you're killing neurons in your brain that have to do with vision or other things. Sometimes we can do some radiation or chemo to shrink tumors, but again, the brain is a very tricky place. So even if they go in and remove the tumor, chances of hitting neurons in there or damaging the brain is still a big problem. Epilepsy, I'm sure you've heard of. It's an illness in which a small area in the brain is damaged. So any sort of small area that could be damaged could lead to epilepsy. This results in seizures. These seizures sometimes maybe are triggered by really bright flashy lights. So if you go to a concert or a movie or, even I went to the museum, science museum, the other year with a group of 8th graders and it said, warning, there's flashing lights, caution. So if someone with epilepsy saw that, they would know that they shouldn't go in there or watch it. Multiple sclerosis, also known as MS, is a disease where the protective outer coating of the nerve is damaged, so then the nerves just no longer work properly. It's a degenerative disease, meaning that it becomes worse over time. So, if you're diagnosed with MS, it's usually you can only do so much to keep the nerves alive, and eventually they will die off, and the person will also lose a lot of function and not be able to do a lot of stuff for themselves, and eventually, they'll probably die, but not necessarily because of the disease, just because you lose nerve function, you lose body function, you might be, in a nursing home and someone is taking care of you, or you lost function in your legs or ability to speak. It's not a good disease, but you can try to stop how fast the disease spreads and how long you have until your nerves are no longer functioning. Take care of your nervous system. Always wear protective gear during sports and physical activity if you need it. Again, you don't need to wear a helmet playing basketball and accidents happen, but you need to wear a helmet during football for a reason and pads for a reason. So if you're just playing football for fun outside, don't play tackle football. That's why we don't do tackle football in Fayette, because I'm not going to get y'all helmets and pads and say, okay, let's go outside and kill each other. No. We take care of our nervous system. Use your seatbelt when you're in the car. You get in an accident, you fly through the windshield not wearing your seatbelt, hit your head, there you go. And it doesn't matter if your parents are the safest drivers in the world, it's the other people making dumb decisions that you have to look out for. So it's not just about who you're riding with, or when you get your license, you are a good driver. You have to watch out for those other people. Get plenty of rest. Hopefully you guys are doing that right now with this e-learning. Like I said, take a break, take a nap, don't rush. I'm going to give you plenty of time to learn about health, so get lots of rest, rest your brains. And the last one, super important, you should already know this, but avoid alcohol and drugs. They destroy brain cells and they interfere with your thoughts, emotions, and judgment. Some of you have seen this firsthand with people in your life, so just know that alcohol and drugs will not help you in any way, shape, or form, especially that alcohol at a young age, drinking age, is 21 because your brain is still developing. If you want to grow up and have less brain cells, then that's what this alcohol is going to do if you're drinking and doing drugs underage. It's not because we don't want you to have fun or have a good time. It's for your safety. And I know the more we tell kids not to do something, the more they want to, but there are rules for a reason, so please be careful. Avoid drugs and alcohol. You don't need them. I had a review assignment for you. It was in a green health book. You obviously don't need to do it because, ta-da, you didn't take green books home. I don't have enough for everybody. So there will be supplemental materials posted on Schoology. I'll have little 5-10 point quiz you can use your notes for. Hopefully you got them and brought them home. Otherwise, you might have to come back, review the notes. I'll let you take it as many times as you need to, but having those paper copies, I think, is going to be really helpful moving forward. So I hope that you grab them. If not, it's not a big deal. You can also print them at home if you so desire, but I will be posting quizzes on Schoology, and that's how I'll be grading you and seeing that you're getting your assignments done.